Do you think anyone's gonna watch live?
I don't know. Did we let people know that we were going live?
No, but people get the notification.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, if they're
Oh,
subscribed, they'll get a little, or like
oh, right.
they'll get a little
It's
ping. It'll show it on their YouTube as well. I don't know how many people get on their YouTube at 9:30 a.m. in the morning.
yeah, possibly they might be at work, but we'll find out.
All right, welcome to the show, Cristelle.
Thanks.
How are you?
I'm good. I just finished a deadlifting piece, so I'm
Oh,
feeling good.
nice. You worked out this morning?
Yeah, I'm actually halfway in between, so the timing worked out pretty well to take a little break, and then I'll get back to it after this.
All right, cool. I wanted to just do, we put out the message in the Slack, but I wanted to get the masters and put it, you guys out here so people could see who our masters athletes are and how many of your lovely faces that we have. Because I think it's a underrepresented space, which is actually really interesting. Did you see the breakdown and morning chalk up of the signups for the open
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
by
it's pretty
age
interesting.
groups?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the 18 to 35-year-olds is like this big.
Mm-hmm.
And then the age groups just monster the rest of everyone else.
Yep. Starting my age division. Everyone
Would
signed
you
up for
say
it.
would you say it's safe to say that an age group is more valuable in the context of the CrossFit Open or CrossFit as a business than the 18 to 34-year-olds?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you provide the context, we're the age group that has been doing it for the last 10, 20 years. So it's kind of already ingrained in us. We're already all bought in. I think the open division maybe are still learning what CrossFit is, and they've had a rough couple of beginning years if they've just joined, the last couple of years.
Yeah,
Um, but I think we're kind of the old guys or guys and gals who have found it and loved it, and we're gonna keep doing it no matter what.
true. Have you seen the numbers from before, like 2017, 2016? Like when they first started like the first master started, what, 2014? And that was 40 plus. And then they have moved it along. I know it started earlier than that, but like actual open divisions, there's always been more age group signups
Hmm.
than what we call individual signups.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. What's your take on that?
I think as a business, CrossFit needs to acknowledge that there needs to be a lot more. That's like why I wanted to have you guys on. I think there should be more shows like this and affiliate members also, because most of them are in an age group and promoting that. Because right now, I am like really pro doing the open, getting the community back together, getting the affiliates together, getting the members in the affiliate surrounded the one thing, using it as their training tool, the pinnacle of what they're doing outside of just health and performance, and then getting them to, we were talking about box jumps yesterday, the coaches and I was just like, most of these things we do in the gym are pretty silly, but
Hmm.
we're doing it because we know the adaptation that we get from it. So like if you do box jumps, you're going to be more explosive, powerful. You can go upstairs faster. You can pull your kid around in the sled outside in the snow. You can go mountain biking. Like the box jump itself and things like that we do produce amazing fitness that allows you to express it. So because we're doing this thing all the time and it has its own makeup and structure, we might as well do the open. It's like similarly, if you ran every day, wouldn't you want to eventually, do a marathon or half marathon?
Yeah, I think just test it, right? Have a little bit of
Yeah.
fun with it. Join up with some buddies, have some fun.
Yeah. So I think the open does that, but it's something that we got to just tell the stories of the people because it makes it more exciting. Because I want people to know who Cristelle is, what you do, how you train, those types of things. So let's start with how'd you get into CrossFit? Tell us everyone's favorite CrossFit story.
Well, my background is in tennis, so I've been playing tennis, coaching tennis for a long time. And a couple of kids that I had at summer camp one summer, they got picked up by their mom and dad. So middle of July, it's baking hot, and literally, like, it looked like Ken and Bobby were just walking down the pathway to pick up their kids, and I'm like, who are these people? This is amazing. And since I had graduated college, I had sort of noticed for the first time in my life that I wasn't surrounded by athletes. I was just surrounded by regular people, I guess. And so I was sort of wondering where all the athletes had gone. So these parents walked up, and I immediately kind of picked their brain as to what they were doing. And they were like, "Oh, we do CrossFit. You should come join us." And I had heard, I think that was right around the time when CrossFit was really dangerous.
What
CrossFit was
year was
gonna.
that? Do you
It
remember?
would have been a couple of years before I started, actually. So 15, 16.
Okay. Yep.
I think I was pregnant with Wesley, so my third. And I was like, well, I'm pregnant. Obviously, I can't do CrossFit. She's like, no, you really can. And I was like, that doesn't seem like a good idea. And anyway, so I kind of put it on the back burner for a little bit. And then more and more of my friends just kind of started mentioning CrossFit. And then I have three boys, so my third finally got to an age where he could kind of sit in the stroller for a little bit. So I called up my friend and I was like, all right, I'm in. So she's like, all right, I'm going to the 5 a.m. class on Monday. I was like, okay. So showed up at 4:45. It's pitch black outside, and I walk in, and everyone's practicing bar muscle
When you
ups.
said the 5 o'clock, I thought in the afternoon, and you're
Yeah,
like,
no, this was
no, it's in the
a.m.
morning. Yeah,
She was testing me good and proper. She's like, all right,
true
5 a.m. So
masters
yeah, exactly.
lifestyle. Got to get it
Yep.
in before the kids got to go to school.
Exactly. And so I walked in, and she was doing bar muscle ups, and I was like, how do you do that? Show me how you do that. I want to do that. So even before I started, I was kind of just intrigued by what I was seeing. And I was like, that's really cool. I want to learn how to do that. And the gym that I went to was awesome. It was a very kind of mom and pop gym. Everyone was coaching each other. Everyone was a great atmosphere. And it was all masters. We had a few youngins, but mainly masters. So you just kind of learned as you went, and everyone threw out a tip and a trick here and there, and we were off and away to the races.
What was it that kept you from CrossFit those earlier times? Because you did mention, so
Um,
you were probably privy to the NSCA lawsuit between CrossFit and NSCA. They put out the
yeah,
false injury rates.
none of the details for that. I think I heard the word CrossFit, so I Googled it, and immediately everything
Yeah,
came up with it's really unsafe, it's really dangerous. I had two young kids and I was pregnant at the time. So I was like, well, that's clearly
yeah,
something I'm not going to be doing.
okay,
So that was
yeah.
mainly
That
it. And
sucks. That's
then
pretty unfortunate that all
it,
happened because
yeah.
you would have got started a little sooner. Yeah, touching on the pregnancy thing real fast because you are a mom and a very good athlete and has been an athlete your whole life. Would you just broadly recommend women doing CrossFit pregnant?
Oh yeah, absolutely. As long as you have the right coach who knows what they're doing. I think there are certain as you progress in your stage of pregnancy, there are certain things that you need to keep an eye on, keep a track
Hmm.
on, and you need to be led appropriately through that. And it totally depends on how much you know your body, how much of an athlete you have been previously, what your training age has been. But yes, no matter who you are, pregnant or no, you can come do CrossFit. Just find a good
Nice.
coach.
Yeah, cool. Do you remember the first workout?
No, but I remember that it was 4 minutes long. It was 4
Okay.
minutes. So I'd gone in, and the whiteboard talk happens, and I'm looking at this whiteboard, and I was still playing tennis. I had gotten into a little bit of like Spartan training and Spartan racing. So I'm no runner, as you know, but I had been running. So these were like hour-long runs, things like that. And I see this thing and it says 4 minutes, and I was like, oh,
That's
I'm
not
gonna
a
have to go
workout.
do a workout after this. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to put the kids in the stroller. I'm just gonna have to run afterwards. And I remember doing this 4 minute workout, going home, getting the kids set up in the playroom, and I'm sat down next to them, like just kind of playing, letting them play around me. And the next thing I know, I wake up. I was lying flat on the playroom floor, and I had a car ramp built over me, and there were like the kids were just playing cars all over my body, and I just like passed out completely from
From a
being
4 minute
so
workout.
exhausted from a 4 minute workout. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
And then you were hooked. You're like, okay, this has some merit. I'm going to do it.
Yeah, and I
Cool. How do
think
you,
I've been
no,
looking
go
for
ahead.
something competitive for a while, and
Okay.
Spartan racing wasn't it. Like I wasn't competitive enough to be a good runner, which is what you need to be. Um, and I really missed applying myself like that. I think I've always just liked to compete, and this filled so many. It checked so many boxes for me. Especially I think being a mom of three very young boys, so they would have been, 1.5-ish all the way through to 6 at that point, and three pretty rambunctious physical boys. And it allowed me just to carve out an hour for myself that was for Cristelle, the person, and not mom, and I could just kind of
Nice.
find myself again a little bit. It obviously got my body back in shape after having 3 kids. And just, yeah, as I saw the competitive avenue open up, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Let's see where we can go with this.
How long did that process take? So you started in the gym taking classes, and then before you were like, okay, I could notch this up a little bit, or did you
Mm-hmm.
like dive into the deep end? Because there's those two scenarios most of the time, or was it something in between?
Yeah. No, I think it was it was a gradual but steep, ramp
Yeah.
into it. So that, just started with the 1 hour classes, and then it was, oh, let's play around for a little bit afterwards. Other kids fine. And there were so many kids there, they all just kept each other entertained. So then, oh, let's play around on the bar, let's play around with this weight for a little bit afterwards. And then it was like, oh, why don't I just go a little bit early and try and fit this in? And pretty quickly
Oh no, she cut out. Her phone probably died. We'll wait for her to get back. All right. Well, while we wait for her to get back, Marissa said hello. Hello. This can probably be a little bit, people. The beauty of going live. Who else is watching? We got a couple people waving in the chat. We can pull up the monster game workouts while we wait for her. All right. First 4 monster games. She'll be back in a second.
all right.
Got it.
There we
Yeah.
go. Sorry
Your
about
phone
that.
probably died.
No, I got a phone call come through. I put my phone
Oh,
on do not disturb, but my I guess people on your favorites list, if they call you, it can still come through. Anyway,
that's probably good because
apologies.
in case of emergencies.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, good thing my kids are at school, otherwise we'd be interrupted 5 times through with calls from them.
All right. So you're building and just playing around after class. And then when did it progress into like, okay, I'm going to do a more competitive program? And what was that program that you
Um,
started with?
I started with
Or-
CompTrain. So I was a
Okay.
big Ben Bergeron fan. I started listening to his podcast, and that was when Katrin was doing so well. And Ben, I think, was pretty vocal in the space, and he was still competitive in terms of what he wanted to achieve coaching wise.
Mm-hmm.
So joined CompTrain and started, taking class, and then staying afterwards, doing some CompTrain stuff. Um, and I got really into the coaching aspect too. So I took my level 1 really quickly. I think within the year, I'd taken my level 1. Within another 6 months, I'd taken my level 2.
I really like
Um,
that when people are like into it like that and they take their level 1. Was there a lot of value for you in that, like taking your level 1 and then coming back into class?
yeah, it was. Yes, it was. That we had some good coaches, and I dove into the YouTube space and kind of read everything I could about it. And I think just learning and understanding more of what the methodology was and how to implement that. So that's where the level 2 was fantastic, because it wasn't just here's information, it was here's how you can apply it, and here's how you can
Mm,
transfer that knowledge to other people. And I also found through coaching tennis that by coaching others, you learn so much about it yourself.
yeah.
So if someone can't do X and you're helping them do it, some cue from whichever angle you come in at is going to help you understand and more fully, like take a 3D model and I can come at it from any angle. I should be
Right.
able to explain it in some way to someone that they can understand.
Yeah, that's cool. I do think that's helpful with people taking like when they get involved and they're like, I really like this. I think I'm gonna do this for a while. I'm gonna take the level 1. I know it's $1,000 in your time, but I do think it translates well. Like you come back to class just a little bit better of like, I know how to handle this a little bit more. And then you can really make it your own, especially with the help of good coaches. So you're
Yeah, and I think
doing,
I've always, like being an athlete, I've always moved my body. So
hmm
some of the things in CrossFit have come more naturally than other things. And the things I think it just allowed me, rather than just to monkey see, monkey do, I was able to monkey see and understand and then try and do. So
yeah.
it was able to kind of break it down a little bit and then build it up with a much better foundation behind it.
What were some of those things that were easy for you because of your athlete history? And how long did you play tennis? So people know.
So I started around 4, and I
So your
played
whole
right
life,
through.
basically.
Yeah, yeah. I have an older brother who's he's 5 years older than me, and so rumor has it that he kind of just plunked a racket in my hand and then started hitting balls at me. So I had a couple choices of like defending myself with the racket
Yeah.
or letting myself get hit. So no, we had some epic battles as kids. And then I played for a little bit on the tour right after high school. Took a year off. Really disliked the lifestyle surrounding being on the tour. I loved the tennis part of it.
hmm
And so then came to college in the States. And so played all the way through '06 and then kind of hung up my competitive racket in '06, coached for a while, and then had 3 boys and then CrossFit.
So from that translation of obviously like good hip rotation, hip extension, and explosivity, what
Mm-hmm.
movements came really easily in CrossFit?
Um, I think things that involve kipping, which is no surprise, you're using your hips a lot. So I had already done, I was very lucky. I came in knowing I could already do strict pull ups, I could already do pretty good push ups.
Nice.
Because of tennis, I could already do double unders. Like that wasn't a
Yeah.
big marvel to me. I was like, oh, this is what we're doing. And you guys gave me a steel cable. Whereas before I'd been using this clunky leather thing that I had to like, it was almost like a drag rope type thing. So I was like, oh, these are really easy, which is great. Um, but the more like gymnastics was terrible, like being on my hands. I hadn't been on my hands upside down since I was probably 4 or 5. Um, but yeah, other things like box jumps, any rebounding stuff, wall balls, all that kind of stuff. And then I just fell in love with the barbell. So the cleans made a lot of sense. I love the snatch. That took a lot of work, but it's my favorite move. And then anything shoulder to overhead, I struggled with, but I think just the explosive nature of like jumping in tennis and stuff, I was able to at least get the bar up overhead, and as
hmm
long as it was in a somewhat good position, I could lock out with it. But yeah, barbell movements I just fell in love with, so I just naturally gravitated towards that. But
Yeah. And you
yeah,
were doing comp
anything
train in the
with pounding.
beginning, and they're pretty barbell focused. Well, she'll come back. She got the call again. All right. We got some watchers. If you guys have any questions for Cristelle, put them in the chat while we wait for her to come back. Got to have people use their, for any masters who are going to go on these, we'll probably have to use your computer.
Sorry.
No, you're
So
fine.
it's actually it's
I asked people to put questions in the chat if they have any. So we'll see if
oh,
they
there we
come
go,
up.
perfect.
Marissa did say
Yeah, no,
hi,
my
your coach.
my
Hello.
brother keeps calling, so it's actually my
Oh,
birthday today, so that's why I'm
oh
getting a
yeah,
few
that's
phone
right. I
calls.
forgot. I looked when
Yeah.
I was pulling it in. I was like, oh, it's Cristelle's birthday. I should have said. So happy birthday, everybody. It's
Thank you.
Cristelle's
Appreciate
birthday.
it.
What a good day to do the first interview. So
That's right.
yeah, and I was saying how CompTrain is was back in the day, it was pretty like barbell centric in the beginning and like a lot of barbell battery work. And then you do like your Metcon and some of the stuff. And over the years it changed, but that was probably a really good fit for you doing class, having CompTrain at the time, when you had it at the time with the barbell stuff, getting better at that.
Mhm.
Once you put that together, then what was like the next phase for you? And how old were you at that time? Like when you first started CrossFit, you were like
So
36.
I started right at like 35.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about 35, I think, when I first started. Um, and so very quickly, I realized that I was missing quite a bit in my Olympic lifts technique wise. So
hmm
I was strong enough to do certain things, and then the technique was missing for me to be able to progress further than that. So I actually then joined a barbell club up the road up in Providence.
Cool.
And I ended up doing, yeah, it was awesome. So I did that for actually 3 or 4 years. And looking back on it, I don't think I would have made this distinction at the time, but I think I was still doing, it was all for CrossFit, but I ended up doing my weightlifting training 3-4 times a week, and that came first. So it was like three
Hmm.
4 hours of pure weightlifting training at a weightlifting club. So there was no CrossFit. It
Yeah.
was like do one rep, put it down, go sit down for 3 minutes, come back, do another one. And then I would look at comp train, and however beat up I felt, I would pick one thing from there that was
Yeah.
more like CrossFit style, and I would finish with a Metcon. So I did that actually for about 3 or 4 years, just to try and get my barbell technique up. And then I think I kind of fell in love with it so much. And I was obviously getting better at that because I was getting the in person coaching on that.
Right.
But I was still doing things like Masters Fitness Collective, trying to qualify for things like Legends, obviously doing the Open every year. And then it wasn't until right after COVID when I was like, you know what? I really think I want to give this CrossFit thing a try. Like I've competed in weightlifting. I know where I am with that, and I know kind of if I carry on with that, how good I can be. But my heart really is.
How well did you do? I didn't know you competed in weightlifting. How well did you do in like weightlifting?
Um, so I mean, during the COVID World Championships, which was all online, so it was real time. You had to show your weights and you had to weigh it in person and everything.
Hmm.
I came in
Oh
fourth
yeah,
in
yeah.
the
I
world.
remember that year. Yeah, we had some
So I'm sure
lifters
we
do
were
that.
missing a whole bunch of competitors, but based on my numbers, like I was pretty up there. Um, and so but I was like, you know what, my heart's really in CrossFit, and my goal, since even seeing my friend do her bar muscle up on day one, I was like, there's this thing called the games, and that's kind of what I want to go for. And I was like, and I'm not going to get there if I'm just concentrating on weightlifting. I've got to
Yeah.
come back into the CrossFit space and kind of hammer home some other things. So joined a different gym coming out of COVID, and that really then the next 3 years I was able to really like pound the gymnastics and kind of put it all together. And then yeah, ended up with you guys about 6 months ago.
Nice. You know what people, I think, I don't want to say you glossed over it, but you spent 3-ish years doing weightlifting, like just weightlifting. Because I think a lot of
Hmm.
people see you and they're like, oh, she's the strong girl. And like you are naturally, I would say, like inclined to be strong, but you also spent a lot of time at a weightlifting club only doing weightlifting. I think
Yeah, and my
that's a good thing.
role,
That
I
how
think.
often have you like really told people about that? Because this is good. I like that we open this up because I know that people know you, we know you, our group knows you, and like, but I think a lot of people looking like, oh, Cristelle's really strong. Like that's what they say. But
Mhm.
I want to highlight that you like earned that strength through 3 years of hard training at a specific facility that only does snatch, clean, and jerk.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And if you look at my raw strength numbers, I'm not that strong. But my clean and jerk numbers and my snatch numbers have been are pretty good in my age group. So yeah, I think a lot of that is just honing in on the technique. And it's like taking a former gymnast who's had, my nephew is training to try and get into the Olympics. He's 16 right now, and he does 24 hours of gymnastics a week. You,
Yeah.
you know, so it's like, and coming, I think having what's been really helpful is having done what I wanted to do in tennis from start to finish, and taking the progression from when I was, 4, or whenever I started playing competitively, like 7, 8, 9, all the way through to 22. You kind of know it's obviously not just a straight progression up, that
Yeah.
you're going to take roundabouts and corners and things like that. But certainly if you want to get good at something, you gotta hone it. You gotta find the right people who can provide that programming feedback and the cues that work for you. And I think the trust between a coach and the athlete has to be like rock solid, because you're at your most vulnerable when you're doing stuff like this. I think I always tell people, you can own a Ferrari, you can have your Gucci handbag, you can put all the makeup on in the world, and yet that's not going to help you when you come in and work out at a CrossFit gym, or you go play a tennis match, or you go do a gymnastics routine. You can't bring any of that into the gym with you. And I think who you are really shines through in CrossFit. You can't hide. If you're going to shave reps, that says a lot about your character. If you're going to shave movements, that says a lot about your character. How you respond when the going gets tough. Do you back off, or do you see someone just black out and keep dogging their way through it?
Hmm.
So I think there's no hiding behind that. And I think for a lot of us who are very competitive, who have a real goal that we're driving towards, you need to have someone who knows you well, because they're going to see you on some pretty tough days, and those are also the people that you want to celebrate with on the best days.
How's those things translated over? Because you have your mom of three. How do those things translate over to being a mom and a wife and like in your other parts of your life? Because you do, because you're an athlete, you're similar to like myself and like and your coach Marissa, where we've been athletes our whole life. So we like being in the gym, we like training, and that's going to take up a good portion of our time because we enjoy it. Similar to like how some people watch Netflix and everything else, but we do know the carryover. How do you balance a lot of that time and that desire for yourself and with the kids? What example does that set? Like, what are those things? Because masters have to deal with that, whether it's they have a job or a business, which is typically what we have, or they're like a high performer in their job as like doctors. I have a lot of doctors that I coach, and then they also have kids and the rest of the family, and most of them are A plus in all those areas. Like, so what are some things that have carried over lessons from CrossFit? And then how does it help you be better in those things? Or does it get in the way and it's just terrible?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a balancing act for sure. I think trying to be be the best version of myself in whatever realm I'm in at that particular moment. So if I'm being a mom in that moment, the kids are at school right now, so I'm kind of, I'm off the clock in that aspect. But when they're around, it's being present, it's being with them, it's making sure that I think my role is to be the bumper rails. Like I always say, if you take it to like a bowling alley and the ball's going down the alley, my and my husband's role is to be the bumper guards. So the kids can choose whichever pathway they're going down. And, if they're just off and away, we're there to support them and cheer them and kind of watch their journey and celebrate who they are and who they're becoming. And if they need it, we can kind of help bumper them back into the lane that, they're traveling down. And I think that with CrossFit, the discipline it takes, I think the effort that you're putting in daily, all those things, just you got to look at the 1% all the time. So you got to like do the full foundation of it, make sure the consistency is there, and then you can take that mindset and that attitude and apply it anywhere else in life, right? So how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so I think just as long as I'm aware of which lane I'm supposed to be in at a particular time, then it's all good. So like during the summer holidays when the kids are out of school, that can sometimes be tricky. As they've gotten older, it's gotten easier. I can kind of say, all right, mom's off into her gym for a couple hours. So here's what you can do, here's what you can't do. Come see me if there are any issues. Otherwise, kind of leave me be. Certainly when they were younger, it was much more of a balancing act in terms of time. I might be in the middle of a workout and I'm like, well, that's my time. I'm out of here. The
Yeah.
kids need me. So, but no, it's been a big balancing act. But I think having CrossFit for me has been, in terms of the relationship with me being mom, and I've just started gone back to work this fall as well. Has just, again, it's just allowed me to, I think, being a mom is like the most amazing thing in the world, but you can totally lose yourself in it and you can
Yeah.
lose yourself to that identity. And CrossFit for sure was one of the first things that really allowed me to focus on myself again and be, okay, who am I? So my oldest is he's going to be 16 in a couple of weeks. And I am not the same person I was 16 years ago. And I don't have, the same interests. I mean, well, maybe I do, but I've developed those, I've grown. And I think having something that is just for you that you can focus on so that that can reset you and rebalance you so that you can come back out of the gym after you're done and then be present with the kids because you've given yourself what your soul needs. It can only win, and the kids get to see that all the time too, which is really cool.
Yeah. How much of an example do you think that's made for them? Like in their own physical culture, or like watching mom work hard at something.
Yeah, I think a lot. They talk they talk about a lot. And being three boys, they all play a lot of sports. So they all do martial arts, and then they pretty much all do baseball. One does lacrosse, two do football. So they're pretty active kids. And they see me obviously working hard, and I don't even know if it would matter. It wouldn't matter whether I was competitive or whether I wasn't competitive. Whether it was me doing CrossFit or me doing a knitting club. Like, honestly, it's just they see the passion that I have in something and how much it fills me up and how much it resets me to then allow me to be the best mom possible. And I think that's more of what it is. Like, it shows them that there are goals and this is how you can go after it. And I always tell them, I'm like, look, find something that you love in life, find an interest, develop that, turn it into a passion, turn it into a love, and you'll be all set. That, you can just follow that along its journey and kind of see where it takes you. And that's a pretty cool thing in life. So I think CrossFit, sure, that's absolutely awesome, because there are things like health and nutrition and sleep that we can kind of round it out with. But really, it could have been anything. I think for
Yeah.
them just to see that there's mom and she's following a passion, she's got a goal, she's trying to do X, Y, and Z. So like when I go to a competition, they're so proud of me. And it's really cute because a lot of the lessons that I teach them, like when they go out to go to a judo match or something, I'm like, all right, kids, what's the number one rule? Like, have fun. I'm like, what's the number two rule? Try your best. And it has to be in that order. And I say, look, and I don't care about the result. If you've done one and two, the rest takes care of itself. And if it's a win, that's just icing on the cake. If it's a loss, then we learn from it and we move on. But as long as one and two are in place, we're all set to go. So when I went to Legends back in December, my boys were like, all right, mommy, now what's number one rule? I'm like, have fun. Like, great. What's number two rule, mommy? So it's cool to hear them. It's sinking in. It's sinking in, and it's cool to see.
Nice. Yeah. And you're just doing that through example. I love it. How much time do you spend training? Well, yeah, now I guess now that you're trying to make a run at the CrossFit Games and put more effort in, like how long does a session take you? If you don't like
Anywhere
dilly
from
dally, because you could
yeah,
really
well,
fill
that's
some
the yeah,
time.
that's the real thing. I think I could get done in 2 hours most of the time if I don't
Okay.
dilly dally.
Yeah.
I do a fairly extensive warm up, which if you include that and some dilly dallying, it's like 2 to 3 hours a day. I go 5 days a week. I have 2 full days off.
When you you didn't do any endurance sport, but like when you're running, how long were you running for?
I think at my peak, I was running between 30 and 40 miles a week. So I do anywhere from like a 3 to a 12 mile run. It just depended on kind of the day and how I was feeling.
Yeah.
But there was no set program. It was, there was a run club through the Y and a bunch of moms put all their kids in the daycare and then we would all just run together. And there
Yeah.
was
I
a
was just
loop
thinking
that we
total
would do.
time.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
like if you
yeah.
went, what did you say, 30 miles?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Not
So
that fast. So.
that's all right. Yeah. I just think like sometimes people hear like the 2 to 3 hours a day and you're at
Mm,
anywhere from 10 to 15 hours a week. And like you could bring that way down for a master's too, depending on the goal and the volume tolerance. I mean, you're in a really hard age group, 40 to 44 years old females,
yeah,
they might as well be some of these games athletes out there. Like they are fit. You
yeah,
are also very fit. So it requires that amount of time. But I would say like if you were doing triathlon or marathon running, you're going to end up at the end of the week having a very similar amount of time spent just doing something different.
yeah.
It's really interesting. But I think
Mhm.
that's one of the sticking points for people. It's like, I'll spend a lot of time doing this. It's like, well, how good do you want to get?
I mean, that's kind of it at the end of the day, right? What are your non-negotiables? What are you trying to do? Like our lives are pretty simple. I go to work, which I love. I love my kids, and I work out, and that's kind of as simple. And
Yeah.
I think shaving away any of the superfluous stuff, like learning to say no, thank you, has been huge the last maybe 5 years or so. I think as women and as moms especially, you get asked to volunteer for library time, you get asked to do a whole bunch of stuff, and it's kind of in our nature, and we want to say, oh yeah, yeah, absolutely, I'll help, oh yes, yes, I can do that. And I've learned to just be like, no thank you, or no, I'm sorry, I'm not available for that, because I only have so much time, and actually, more than that, I only have so much energy during the day, and I want to put my energy towards the things that matter the most to me, and that's going to be my family and my goals. And
Yeah.
anything else, if I have time and effort for it, absolutely. But I've tried to kind of narrow things down to be a pretty narrow scope.
What's the advice to somebody? Because now I mean, you started and told the story about how the people walk in and they look like the Barbie and Ken doll. And I'm sure now you walk into places and people ask you what you're doing for fitness and you're that pinnacle and role model. What is something you would give somebody who either wanted to start CrossFit um, or wanted to get more competitive in CrossFit? And in the context of being a female and a mother, because that's a unique lens that you get to look through. What would you tell them to encourage them if they're like, "How do I do this? You look great. I want to be like you." What would be a couple pieces of advice?
Yeah, firstly, thank you. Appreciate it. And then secondly, just start, right? Just start somewhere. Like I have a lot of people who haven't started and they say, oh, but, and they ask me a lot of questions. They're asking, oh, what do I do? And they're like, oh my gosh, like you said, with the 2, 3 hours a day, they're like, I couldn't possibly. I'm like, well, you
Yeah.
shouldn't. You absolutely shouldn't. You know, I've,
Yeah.
I've, I've been an athlete for what, I'm just
Since you're
42
4.
today. Since I was
Yeah.
4, and I've got a few decades of doing this, and I've built up as I've gone, and I was like, and look, don't forget, there's health and wellness and longevity, and there's being competitive, and I've chosen
Yeah.
competitive, and that often doesn't look like health and wellness and longevity, and you're trying to balance the two a lot, but being competitive means usually you're a little bit crazy and you're going above and beyond most of the time. So if someone's just looking to start, I'm like, look, don't ask me because I'm not the
Mm.
person you should be trying to emulate. Um, Ask Sally over here or something like that. But my main thing is just start and see where it takes you and learn and have fun. And that's the cool thing about CrossFit is it's the environment, the community that you make so many friends, so you end up having a New Year's party with someone or going to someone's birthday party or just having dinner with someone or coffee, right?
Yeah.
So I think for those wanting to get more competitive, it's a tougher one. I mean, I think they've answered a lot of their own questions if they've already made that decision to be competitive. I think having the big, hairy, audacious goal is pretty cool. But that can't be how you judge yourself or how you judge your path along that line towards that goal, right? So setting that big goal is awesome, but then making sure you're surrounded by the people, because it's the journey that in the end of who you're becoming as you get to that goal that is going to shape you much more than the achievement of that goal. So if I can switch it back to tennis, right? I ended up I won a little bit here and there, and that was awesome. Those were my goals and I achieved them. But the moment of winning it was like that. It was match point. I won the point. It felt really cool. We threw our rackets up in the air. We hugged. We got a trophy. We went home. We felt really great. And that lasted for about 2 days to a week, depending on what it was, the feel goods. And then you're setting a new goal, or, you go back to practice and you kind of have a tough practice and you're like, oh man, this is hard.
Yeah.
And so really it's the people that you choose to go on that journey with. What is it? It's like the 5 people you choose to surround yourself with are those that are going to impact who you are and how you choose to live your life. So choose wisely. So
Mhm.
set your goal and then surround yourself with the best people possible, to make it fun, to support you and who you are and where you're trying to go, and then see what happens along the way. And I think having, like we said, with a coach, having people that you trust so that if they give you feedback, being like, hey, you know what? Like if I had set my goal to, I don't know, weightlift in the Olympics, like, okay, Cristelle, that's really, really awesome that you want to try and do that, but let's reshape that goal and look at something a little
Yeah.
bit closer that is still high reaching, that you're going to have to become some of the, best in the world,
Mhm.
but is actually achievable, right? So I think picking the goal and then making sure you've got a lot of small goals along the way and then surrounding yourself with the right people is, I guess, where I'd encourage people to go with that.
Nice. Anything else you want to let the masters know out there who are going to listen to this or watch it, or anyone who's not a
um
masters?
I mean, a shout out to you guys, really. I think I've
Thanks.
done this now. Yeah, no, I mean, really and truly, I've been with you guys for 6 months, and um just talking again about putting the right people in place and making sure that they are supporting you and your goals all along the way, right? I think especially in something like CrossFit, you can pick the comp train program and you can follow that, or the Mayhem program, and they're going to be great. You're going to get really fit and you're going to get really strong.
Yeah.
But it's not going to identify and target the holes that you have. So if you take me as a CrossFit athlete, right, before I met you guys, and what we're working on is if you have weightlifting, your engine, and your gymnastics, my weightlifting is like world class. And then the other two is not world class. And and I had spent 3 years still trying to get my weightlifting to be even better. And I'm like, okay. And when I came to you guys, you were like, well, we might not need to touch the weightlifting for a little while. We've got to bump these other numbers up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I think personalized, individualized programming where you can really target who you are as an athlete and how you can make you the whole athlete is really important. So actually, maybe that's I would throw that into the competitive advice as well. Is you can't have a generic program because you're not generic. You're unique to who you are. And so you need someone who can see you for who you are and where your holes are and where your strengths are, and also then knows what the competitive landscape is. Like I was pretty blown away when I first met you guys and you had all my metrics and all my leaderboards out, and you were like, well, if you had done a round more here or a couple more reps here, this is where you could have, gotten to, and this is how we can get you there. So yeah, I would recommend people seek you guys out and pick you guys' brain. You're very knowledgeable and you care a lot, which goes a long way.
Thanks. Yeah, CJ, the metrics thing is funny. She's been with us. She's going to be with us until Fittest of the Coast. And we were talking about chatbot and if you could get it to like break down a workout for you. If you're like, hey, I move at this rate of travel for burpees. And I was like, it can't do that yet. Like it doesn't work that way, but it'd be cool if it did, because that would make my job much easier. But yeah, breaking down
Yeah.
workouts and like movement speeds. It's pretty funny. We're just
Yeah.
it's just crazy how it's gonna be, like how you even watch the Masters, how it's like that granular for a
Mm.
lot of these athletes, especially with limited spots. You have to push up on things, and it can be really tough that way.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that's good advice. Cool. Well, we're happy to have you. I'm happy birthday,
Thank you.
and it's fun. I like this. I
Yeah.
want to tell you guys' stories a little bit more. And I
Yeah.
don't know
No,
how
it's
many
awesome.
people knew that you played tennis since you were 4. So that's good.
Lots of
You
tennis.
gotta
Yeah.
you gotta put on your Instagram. I really want you to do it. You gotta get the frying pan and just hit the tennis balls just for a reel. Like
Yeah.
next time you're out there, just take a frying pan and show them what's what.
Yeah. I just bought a new one for Chinese New Year. It's got a cool dragon on the back of it, so maybe I'll use that one.
Oh, nice, nice. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, we should provide the context too, because otherwise people won't know why you're saying take a frying pan out with a tennis ball.
You tell them. You tell them why.
Well, so I just joined a new coaching staff and I brought out my racket that I love. I've played with it for the last 20 years. And one of my colleagues looked at me and she was just like, wow, what is that antique doing out here? Put that thing away right now. And I was like, oh my gosh, stop. This racket can hear you. Like it has feelings, give it a break. It's done its job really well the last 20 years. And she was like, no, no, no. So for a few weeks went by and I'm hitting with my racket and I'm like, oh, this feels great. I love hitting with my racket, but it's got a small sweet spot. So that's at the point of contact where you hit it on the frame, you're going to get the best result, right? And my elbow was feeling a bit clunky. So I was like, you know what? Let me try this other racket that was
The
born
Nimbus
last year.
2000.
Exactly, exactly. And I used it, and oh my goodness, I was like, good Lord, this thing can just play by itself. This is awesome. But one of my main things as a coach that I really dislike is when people blame their equipment. They're like, oh, my strings are too loose. Oh, my racket felt funny. Oh, my grip was coming off. Oh, it was too slippery. Oh, my shoes weren't tight enough. And my whole thing is you should be able to pick up a frying pan and go play tennis in a parking lot. Like that is not the reason that you didn't win that match today. That's just an excuse. So you should be able to play with whatever equipment they give you. Just like when I come in Olympic lift, we have a couple of really nice Alicos. And unless it's a competition, I'll just pick up one of our normal barbells. Because I don't want to get in the mindset that I can only lift heavy or only lift a certain way with an Olympic lifting bar.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think you should be able to run in whatever shoes, you should be able to jump in whatever gear you have on, and you should be able to lift with whatever barbells in front of you. So that's where the frying pan analogy comes from.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, it's nice to have those things, but yeah, you're right. You should be able to play tennis in a frying pan.
Yeah.
Like the Eleiko bars, that's a good that you made that analogy because they are nice. Like you do feel a difference
It's like
when you're,
driving a Ferrari. I mean, I haven't driven a
yeah,
Ferrari, but I'm sure it would be like driving a Ferrari and then getting back into my minivan, which I love. And my minivan is, really
yeah,
good for everyday driving with 3 kids. But to get in the Ferrari once in a while would be a pleasure. So
yeah,
lifting with the Eco every once in a while, you hit a lift and you just hear the sound of it, and you're like, there's not a whole lot of things better in the world than that sound.
yeah. And it's smooth turnover.
Mm-hmm.
It's real
Yeah.
nice.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. Well, thanks for coming on. We won't
Yeah.
spend
Thanks,
more of
Liam.
your time. You can get back to your next piece of your session.
Yeah, I have
And
wall walks. My
yeah,
favorite.
it's good. Oh, the wall walks. They're coming.
Mhm.
I feel like they're coming. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Cristelle.
Yep. All right. Look
Thanks,
forward to
guys, for
seeing the rest of
watching.
these.
Like and subscribe, share this video if it was helpful, and we'll do more Masters talks.